Yeah, man.
Hello and welcome back to the Fight and Talk 2 channel. I am Mr. Fight and Talk, and we have the return of the eloquent analyst. How are we doing, my friend?
Doing good. A little bit under the weather at the moment. You can hear it in my throat. You can hear it in my nose a little bit, but powering through. How you doing, my guy?
Very good, very good. I'm sure that even with the flu, you will still be as eloquent as ever.
Trying to.
Now, as always, if you are new to listening to the channel, please do subscribe, please do like. And if you're listening to us on the Sportinarium radio station, thank you very much for listening. We provide weekly content on the UFC and just general bits going on in mixed martial arts as well. So thank you very much for listening and listening to what we have to say about the massive weekend that is coming up next weekend. We obviously had a weekend off here, and then it gets straight into it with a massive card. Naturally, as soon as you hear the words Conor McGregor, you know it is going to be an absolute storm. I myself and the eloquent analyst, we were talking about this a minute ago, we have both rewatched the Dustin Conor 2 fight quite a few times this week, and we definitely will be watching it a little bit more. But before we get to that, we will be talking about what's going on in the super early prelims, the Fight Pass prelims. We have a very underrated fight. Now, if you are new to mixed martial arts, these two gentlemen should be well up on your list of fighters to watch. And obviously, us being mixed martial art fans, I mean, I'm going to be tuning into this straight away. This is an absolute banger to kick off the card. Omari Akhmedov versus Brad Tavares. Now, Brad Tavares is obviously fought the current champion, Israel Adesanya, and took him to a 3-round decision. Omari Akhmedov is an absolute warrior. Oh, 5-round decision, sorry. Is an absolute warrior. So, I mean, tell me, why is this on the early prelims? I mean, what's going on?
I mean, you just from the how stacked the rest of the card is, to be honest, I think you look at the other names that are on this list, and I think there are names that are more synonymous with the fans. The Carlos Condits, the Nico Prices, the Ryan Halls. These are all ones that I guess fans would kind of know a little bit more than an Omari Akhmedov. I think Brad Tavares is someone that's well-known-ish. You know, he's had a main event. He's had a fight against Israel Adesanya. So I think people know about Brad Tavares and the grittiness that he brings to the game. Omari Akhmedov, God, that name is just a tongue twister, isn't it? He's a veteran, man, and I know he's fought, you know, the Chris Weidman, and he's fought some great people over the years, and he's been a staple of the UFC for so many years. The kind of, I wouldn't say gatekeeper, but he's just another kind of name, a middleweight name that's out there. So I think this is on the early prelims because of the fact of that. But it's going to be a great fight. Both grinders, both veterans of the game as well. Someone that have been around for a very long time. Omari Akhmedov has obviously got a predominantly wrestling style coming from that Russian side of things. He's got a great he's a great grappler as well, which is great when you're a wrestler. So, you know, it's great to have wrestling. That's good. Hold them against the cage, do your bits and pieces. But when you've got a good ground game as well, it just really, I think, adds, and I think fans really enjoy that, a wrestler that has a good ground game as well. I think it adds to their, you know, their well-roundedness. So I think that's kind of what the fans look for there. Brad Tavares is a great striker, so it's quintessential striker versus grappler. I think Brad Tavares is probably going to get the dub here. I think he's a little bit more well-rounded, and I think he's faced tougher competition, and I think that will kind of give him that experience edge.
No, I'm with you. I completely agree. I think Omari Akhmedov has been known to gas quite a lot in the past as well, especially if it gets past like 2.5 rounds and he hasn't kind of, you know, got the other person to, you know, exacerbate all of their gas tank, then he usually loses his. And I think, like you say, Brad Tavares is going to want to keep this on the feet. And I think if he does, he's going to have a very good chance of, I think he's going to catch him and get a TKO early win, if I'm honest with you.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah. Or, I mean, that's plausible.
Yeah. Or I think, you know, like you say, with Omari being such a veteran and having gone through so many wars himself, this might be a backwards forwards kind of grind to a decision, kind of a little bit of a sleeper fight. I think it might be a little bit of a sleeper fight if Brad Tavares can't get his game plan off early.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned Ryan Hall. Ryan Hall looks like the dweediest guy you can ever imagine. Like, we see a lot of these memes as well, especially in the mixed martial arts community. We say, How do you tell someone that the guy on the left will beat the guy on the right, and it'll be a picture of like prime Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then it'll be a picture of Ryan Hall, and the guy is a very, very tricky customer on the ground, and he'll be fighting Ilia Topuria on this card, which I think is a fantastic matchup with these two gentlemen. Topuria has got slick hands as well. If my memory serves me, his last performance out, very, very smooth on the feet. But which way do you which way do you see this going?
I think this is going to be a tough fight, man. I think, Ilia Topuria is a great striker, but I think he's a little bit more well known for his wrestling. I don't know if he'll implement much of that against Ryan Hall, because Ryan Hall off his back is as deadly as anyone. It's like having a face like Vanderlei's right hand or Chuck Liddell's right hand. You're facing Ryan Hall's ground game, and he is tricky, as you said. Amazing, he can just pull a submission out of his butt, and you just would not even know what is going on before you've even realized that you're already unconscious. He's that guy, 100% that guy, and you wouldn't expect it at all out of this person. It's like watching Chase Hooper. You wouldn't expect Chase Hooper to go out there and scrap, but he does. And I think Ryan Hall, I think it's more of a mentality thing for some of these guys here, more than what they look like or getting physically the most shredded that they can get. And I think Ryan Hall is a great example of that, because he doesn't need to be an incredible striker. I don't think he needs to be. I think his wrestling and his jiu-jitsu, kind of going back to that Amari Akhmedov point, which is he's got a good ground game, but he's a good wrestler as well. So it kind of feeds into his character, and because of his experience, and he's been grappling for years and years and years. I think he has as good a chance as anyone if he's off of his back. But then, the fight starts on the feet. So is he able to get it to the ground, whether it's him jumping guard or him taking Ilia Topuria down? I don't think he's going to be able to physically get Topuria to the ground via wrestling. I don't think he's, even with, he can have all the trips in the world, but I don't think someone as physically strong as Ilia will be able to be fell by Ryan Hall. So I think Ilia is probably going to look to just keep it striking, keep it at a distance, keep away from the ground in any way, shape, or form. I think even if Ryan Hall shoots on him, he's the guy, when he even gets a single leg, he's like already halfway across the other side of the octagon, hopping on one foot. He's going to be that guy, and that's what we're probably going to see quite a lot here on Saturday.
You'd assume that in the camp, in the build up to this fight, Ilia Topuria's team's going to be getting him up by the side of the cage, working on a lot of cage work, really, really putting in the effort on, stuffing the head. I don't think so. Bringing the hips back. You don't think so?
I really don't think so. I think they're going to be preparing him for a guy jumping guard in the middle of the cage. I don't even think that Ryan Hall tries to, because again, I don't think Ryan Hall is like physically is going to be able to like body lock, take down a Topuria. I don't think he's going to be able to double leg him. I don't think he's going to be able to single leg him. I think it's going to be one of those ones where he's going to kind of try and clinch up with him and then just try and jump to guard, like literally just jump straight into guard and hope for the best, and hope that, Ilia, it could get to a thing where he jumps guard and Ilia just is still standing, because I think he's physically just going to be able to hold him up. And then it'll be interesting to see what Ryan Hall can kind of do from there, whilst he's kind of in guard while someone's standing up. That's a position I can kind of anticipate seeing here. Yeah. But I just don't see him having the strength to take him down against the cage. So it's going to have to be some in the middle of the octagon, using guard, and then I think Ilia at that point, using his wrestling, could quite easily get off the ground or scoop him off the ground and use it to get a takedown of some sort.
Or even something a bit more unusual, like an Imanari or something. He could even just Ryan Hall could just pop that up, Imanari straight in off the bat, and try and take him down that way, or even like a leg trip, or like a really like we saw Gamrot doing a couple of months ago, whenever it was, like almost picking up a ankle pick, but all in on that one ankle, and then just drive it straight down with the shoulder. I think
he's got one of the better Imanari rolls in the game for sure. And there are guys like Tony Ferguson that hit it pretty well, but just the smoothness of Ryan Hall's one is second to none, man. So I'm really excited for this. This is going to be one of my more favorite fights of the night, next to the actual next fight that we're going to be talking about. No swearing.
And we have in Casual Crush Corner He's joined us halfway through the show. Well, we're only 2 fights deep, but he's joined us fresh from London town. How are we doing, George?
Yeah, great. Yeah. Feel fabulous. It's like, what is it, midnight? I've just got home from London. So, yeah, mate, feel great.
That is what it's all about, man. That's what it's all about. This time next Saturday, I don't even think we would have been on the early prelims yet. So it's not bad going. It's not bad going at all. And with the amount of fights that we have next weekend, it will be keeping us awake throughout the whole night. And that leads us on perfectly to what we all think will be the fight of the night. Nico Price, the man with the strangest physique in mixed martial arts, versus the main character from Lazy Town, as me and Praf were talking about earlier. He can't just go from one side to the other. He has to do 3 backflips, 2 Imanari rolls, and 3 cartwheels. Michel Pereira. Yes, I'm going to do it with my best Portuguese accent. George, this is going to be an absolute chaos of a fight. These 2 gentlemen are very well known for being absolute lunatics in the octagon. How do you think this one plays out? Because we've seen Michel Pereira get very, very gassed in the past, and he's been beaten up by people that have been weight categories below him who have gone up to fight him. But do you think he's going to be in his element when he fights Nico Price?
Yeah, right. Let's get my head in the game for this because I've just done a 5-hour car journey. So let's think about this. Yeah, sometimes, right, I feel like the UFC just gets it right. So recently we had the Burgos Barboza one, and it just kind of all comes together perfectly. It feels like Nico Price and Michel Pereira is kind of in the same ballpark region of like just the perfect mix of craziness. And yeah, obviously Dana will be signing $75,000 checks to both of these chaps because I'm pretty sure it's going to be fight of the night. I agree with you though. Like Michel Pereira's got this kind of weird thing, like he's got that weird, like you don't know what you're going to get with him kind of scenario. Like he has looked really great at times. Other times he just does all this crazy stuff, and it's like you're almost imploring him just to go back to being sensible because you're getting way more out of him than when he was messing around doing backflips onto people like mid-fight, like all that crazy stuff. Nico Price as well just is kind of in the same ballpark. So I just see like you say, it's just like a chaotic war for 15 minutes. But middle of the prelims, that's kind of perfect in a way. You know, that's kind of what you need because that's kind of the time where it starts to get a bit like sleepy time sometimes. You know, and you need something that's going to pick you up. And so this is going to perfect slot really just to keep you going, get you through onto the main card, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, I'm going to go for Nico Price in this one, man. I think Nico Price is going to win this one. Michel Pereira for me, he could be really good, but to be really good, you've got to kind of be a bit more on it and a bit more sensible at times. I just don't think Michel Pereira will ever be that kind of character, which is cool because you just know you're going to get that kind of craziness from him. I think Nico Price gets it done and beats Michel Pereira on Saturday.
I mean, if you look at the records, you know, Nico Price is coming into this with a 14-4, which is not a terrible record at all. And he's got some very notable names on his resume as well. Michel Pereira's come into this 25-11, you know, and I think once you start to really rack up them digits on the loss side, it's pretty mad. I think obviously most of them would have been outside the UFC, and then he's had a few kind of decisions not go his way as well. I mean, like you say, we always talk about why certain fights are at certain points on the card. I think it's sometimes they have that little injection of adrenaline for the entire crowd just to go, right, cool, let's stick some absolute craziness in there just to keep everyone going. But Prath, obviously, if Michel Pereira kind of reins it in a little bit and starts becoming let's say he goes in there and he just is point kickboxing, for instance. He goes in, he gets his points, he comes out. He goes in, gets his points and comes out, and he catches a win, you know, a 30-27. People are going to look at him in a completely different light. It's almost like he's set his own bar too high now for being this kind of crazy tightrope walk-in guy that walks on the mad stuff. I don't know, doing backflips. And what are the people that do the swings? I don't know what they're called.
Trapeze?
He's like a trapeze artist without any ropes and stuff.
Don't ask me how I know that.
So he's obviously coming in as this circus performer, right? And if he comes in all clean shaven and everything, no one's going to see him the same. But he's going to want to catch a dub here.
Yeah, I mean, I think both guys are just chaotic individuals, and Nico Price really sums up the kill or be killed moniker because, you know, he's either knocking someone out or getting knocked out himself or losing a decision. And so, man, it's a chaotic fight. I do think Nico Price has a little bit of an advantage in terms of just the quality of opponents that he's fought over Michel Pereira. But Michel Pereira is just, again, he's the unpredictability of him, and he could just catch him with a backflip kick, like he, you know, the one that George mentioned on Tristan Connolly, a fight he actually lost in the end. But you know, if he landed that shot, he would have been remembered forever as a legend. So I think that's actually more of what he's trying to do than win the fight. I think he wants to land, like he wants to be like Showtime Pettis. He wants to jump off the cage and kick the dude in the face. I think he wants that big knockout win more so than actually to win the fight itself. So I think because he searches so much for it, that's where he ultimately loses a lot of these decisions, because he's gassing himself out, jumping off the cage or throwing, a kick into a spinning kick into a backflip. It's unnecessary. You're just exerting too much energy, but it's in search of that big, that paycheck knockout that will just change his life. So I don't blame him for wanting to go for that, because that's great. And, they match him up against a guy that's going to bring it. So there's no excuse for him not to really pull all of his tools out of his toolbox here and try and hit Nico Price with everything he's got. I think this is the fight that really will elevate Michel Pereira if he's able to win it. It will really show that in the welterweight division, he is a contender and it's someone that people should take seriously. But if Nico Price wins, I don't think he gets the same steam off of Michel Pereira's name. And I think it's a little bit Nico Price's fight to lose here, because I think he can just out experience him, maybe win a decision here, be a little bit more tactical and technical with it. But do I see that happening? Absolutely not. I think Nico Price is coming in, throwing everything and the kitchen sink at Michel Pereira, and it's going to be the same back and forth. It's going to be a wild fight. It's going to be a decision. I can't tell which way. I would say Nico Price maybe a little bit more than Michel Pereira, but it's going to be a crazy fight back and forth. So this is the ones that you tell your friends about. Hey man, I know you're going to watch this card. The casual fan is going to watch this card because of Conor's name. This is the fight you want to tune in for before you get to the main event. Obviously the co-main event, and Sean O'Malley on the opener of the main card is kind of what I think a lot of the casual fans are going to be looking at here. But my God, if you want to really start dipping your toe in and get further as a mixed martial arts fan, this is a terrific fight to really set yourself up on that journey.
Yeah. Go ahead, George.
I say these two boys is just simply going to meet in the middle of the octagon on Saturday, and they're just going to swing. It's great.
Literally.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Can't wait.
And this fight's obviously, like you said, Prath, is going to be a fantastic fight for the newcomers to the mixed martial arts world, to really showcase what mixed martial arts is all about, and what a capoeira fighter versus, Nico Price, who's just do anything to try and catch the W, Yeah. And then obviously the next fight up from that we're going to talk about. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, for me, the placement of the fights on the card, right? This is a fight for me that if I had the control of the pen here and I was making the card, as much as I love it in that prelim second position to really drive the fans into having that interest to go to the main card, I think this is probably one of the most perfect main card opening fights that you could probably get as well. So I like it in both those positions. I think it's a quality fight, and the headliner of the prelim card is obviously a classic name that a lot of people love. So I can see why they would put that in that position.
Yeah, I mean, this is even a co-main for a fight night event. I wouldn't
easily.
I wouldn't disagree with that at all. If you saw a fight night, whoever versus whoever, quite low level names or whatever. If you saw this on the co-main, you'd be like, yeah, fair enough. You know what? I'm going to tune into that. I'd stick with 100%. That. Very much like the next people we're going to speak about. Carlos Condit has obviously been in and around the game for a lifetime, it would seem. And with a record of 32-13, it's not half bad. Coming up against Max Griffin. Now, George, what do you think about this fight? Because Carlos has been in the game for such a long time now. He's got nothing left to prove. He's probably very, very close to retirement, and he's coming and fighting a 17-8 fighter. Where do you think he goes from this? And do you think he catches the W on Saturday night?
Yeah, why not? Yeah, why not? He can be like Matt Brown, can't he? Who got the W a couple of weeks ago. He can just do it again. They fought in January, didn't they, as well?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Carlos won.
Yeah, mental, right? So yeah, why not? Maybe he can follow his old time pal buddy, Matt Brown, and catch W. I just I'm not hating on this fight. I don't dislike it, but it's not getting me hugely excited. It's not one that I'm like, holy guacamole, gotta see this one. If I fall asleep for 15 minutes, I'm not gonna be too disappointed. I'm not gonna lie. All right. So I don't know where kind of Condit goes after this. I think if Condit loses, right, I suppose then the question marks start, don't they, at that point? People then start to go, is it worth it anymore? Blood, all this kind of stuff. What do the UFC do with Carlos Condit now? And it would have been the same question for Matt Brown a couple of weeks ago if he had lost. And people go, oh, what do we do with Matt? What do we do with Brown now? What do we do? But because he won, everyone's like, oh, we could see him maybe fight Nick Diaz. It's like, what? What? All right. But yeah, I don't really like I think it's just one of those kind of things that his career now. It's kind of like if he wins, the UFC will book him again. They'll put him up against another guy, and because it fills the card. While if he loses, the kind of question marks start. And I guess in a way, with a record for Griffin like 17-8, this is also a big fight for you. Like we talk about records that like we know that losses in mixed martial arts don't mean too much really, but when you start to pick up a record which is getting close to double figure wins and double figure losses, it starts to look a bit unpretty, and that's not an ideal scenario for Griffin. I don't it's kind of I suppose in a way it's a big fight for both gentlemen, right? Both need the win. That's a simple fact. So in that respect, we might actually get quite a good fight on Saturday because both are out there desperate for a win. So yeah, maybe I'm putting it down a bit too much, but yeah, it's not the one that's really getting the juices flowing too much, to be honest.
If you look at Carlos Condit's record over the past 3 years, he's lost to Neil Magny, Michael Chiesa, and then he had a good win, Court McGee, and then he obviously beat Matt Brown. Like he's fought some really, really challenging opponents over the past couple of years. Perhaps threw a little bit more high on this card, on this particular fight, right? But
I mean, I love Carlos Condit. I love Carlos Condit. He's such a fan favorite fighter. Definitely, like all of our favorite fighters right now, like Dominic Cruz. Well, my favorite fighter is Dominic Cruz and Carlos Condit and stuff like that. Obviously, are like the heroes of yesteryear, if you will. And they're all starting to get to that age now where they are dropping off a little bit in terms of their stamina and their ability to fight. I wouldn't say it's so much their ability to fight. I think it's just more of the actual grind of the fight itself that I think that they aren't able to really mentally keep up. Physically, obviously, mentally they're able to keep up with it. Physically, maybe they're not able to keep up with it as much as they used to. But I will say that these two aren't that dissimilar in age. Carlos Condit is 37, Max Griffin's 35. So it's not that they're worlds apart in it. Yeah, I thought Max Griffin was like 27. So this is really surprising to me. But yeah, they are very close in age. So I think this is a decent fight for Carlos. I think Max Griffin hasn't looked spectacular in any of his fights. I can't remember a coming out of a Max Griffin fight being like, man, this guy is a serious contender. So I think Carlos Condit was looking for a fight, and they chucked him whichever guy that they could find at the time that was available on the day, and Max Griffin's name just happened to be that one. So man, I would just, obviously I'm going to say Carlos Condit's going to win. I don't know how he's going to win. I wouldn't say he's maybe going to win by knockout. I didn't think that Matt Brown was going to win by knockout, but look what he did. Like, anything's possible in this fight game. If I think Matt Brown caught him with something crazy like a flying knee or a head kick, you'd be a little bit less like, oh my God. But the fact that he hit him with a punch and knocked him out, I think was what really was like, whoa, okay, Matt Brown. That's why everyone immediately jumps like, oh yeah, give Matt Brown a title shot. He deserves it. He's a veteran of the game. He deserves it. Stop. Sit down, people. And I want to see him fight the Carlos Condits of the divisions and stuff like that. And I hope that they continue to match, the 35 plus guys against the 35 plus guys. Let's not, chuck Carlos Condit in against flipping Kamaru Usman. Like, that's just not gonna end well for anyone, or anyone's gonna care for that kind of thing. So I think this is and I kind of agree with Conor, with George, sorry, which is, you know, if Carlos loses this, I think this is going to be again where they open the questions up of whether Carlos should retire. And I think at this point, Carlos, and I've got to agree with you, Conor, like, I don't think Carlos has got anything to prove at this point. He's had a Hall of Fame career. You know, it's an interim title, but he still won a title, and he beat, you know, Nick Diaz to get that title. So it's not like he fought, you know, Joe Schmo to win the title. He fought a legitimate fighter to get the title, you know, and Nick Diaz at that time was a fantastic fighter. So so I rate him for that, and I give him that title reverence that I think I would give to, you know, the GSPs and the other fighters at that weight class who have won the belt. Hall of Fame career. I think this is at least, if not his last one, his last one or two. And I just love to see him go out on a win. And I think that's ultimately why these guys keep going out in their late 30s and going out and fighting, is because they just want to get that last win. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Matt Brown's like, okay, cool, I got my win, peace, I'm done.
Yeah. No, it's not dissimilar to Anderson Silva, you know. And I was looking at something earlier that said Anderson Silva held the belt for 6.5 years, you know. And then obviously the new MMA fans will only ever see the fact that he got knocked out in his last 3 fights, and it was all pretty rough towards the back end. But
yeah,
I see what you mean. You know, with these kind of fighters, their mind, you can see what they want to do. They want to parry the shot. They want to slip the jab. They want to slip an uppercut. But all of a sudden they've slipped and they've already been hit twice in the face, and then they're uppercutting and going, well, what happened? I've already been hit, you know? Yeah. And we saw that in Anderson Silva, man. In his last 2 fights, he was doing the whole, you know, judo chops in the air kind of thing. And everyone was really excited, thinking, wow, like, this is prime day Anderson Silva. But then he was getting jabbed in the face every time. And it was like, he didn't used to get jabbed in the face this much, you know? But no, I can definitely see Carlos. Fingers crossed he gets the dub here, and then he can lay the gloves down and say, you know what, I've had enough. Because I don't think we see enough fighters lay the gloves down after a fight and go, you know what, this is me. I'm done now. Thank you so much to everyone. I feel like recently we've had a few people actually have these nice little send-offs, you know?
I feel like Khabib is the only one that really did it at the prompt. Look at his timing there. What on top, beat everyone they put in front of him, beat Conor McGregor, beat Dustin Poirier, beat all the top guys. The only one he didn't fight was Charles Oliveira, and that's it. Like, and he went out on top, and he was like, "Cool, I'm done what I needed to do, got all the money I needed to get. I'm out of here."
Exactly.
We'll see.
Yeah, and then opening up the main card, there's obviously a guy who wants to be a Hall of Famer. You can see it in his eyes. He wants to have all of the Instagram followers in the world, and he wants to have every color of the rainbow in his hair. Chris Montino. Now, we were obviously talking about this during the week with Sean O'Malley's fighter opponent falling off. Remind me who it was, because he was actually fighting someone that was mildly decent.
Ooh, Smolka,
exactly. He was fighting Smolka. Smolka obviously couldn't make the fight. And there was a lot of discussions on social media as to who Sean O'Malley was going to be fighting. George, I believe it was you that kind of dropped the knowledge on. There was a 125er that wanted to jump up. There was some 145ers that wanted to jump down. Everyone wanted to jump everywhere. But who did he end up with, man?
In the guy from Cage Fury Fighting Championship. So this feels like a guy that they're going to send in there so Sean O'Malley can get his highlight reel knockout again. This is what this feels like. It feels like Dana White's doing him a favor, basically. He's going to give him an easy... I'm not saying an easy fight. That's not fair. This guy could beat him. It could happen. You know, strange things have happened. But it does feel a lot like when they said no to Tim Elliott coming up, and then they said no to Ricky Simon coming down, it felt like that Dana wanted to give Sean an easy night's work and then get that kind of like highlight reel thing, pay him $50,000 because he had a crazy knockout over this guy who hasn't fought in the UFC before. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, like, I know that kind of a Conor McGregor card sells itself, but this is a pretty poor replacement. Like, really, I'm not hating on the guy. I don't know anything about him. I couldn't even tell you anything about him, but it just feels like they could have done a bit more work. because there was so many people putting their hand up to fight Sean O'Malley. Because I get it, because if you beat Sean O'Malley, it's, you know, you get a bit of hype and a bit of clout off of that. So, but yeah, I think this is all set up for just the Sean O'Malley crazy one punch, one kick knockout, walk off KO style thing, and yeah, away we go. But I suppose on a pay-per-view card, if that's how it opens up on the main card, probably does the UFC a few favors, to be honest.
And fingers crossed, Sean O'Malley can come into this maybe a little bit more mature than his previous fight, where he tried to keep getting the one-punch knockout over and over and over again. I think it was a very, very immature performance last time he was out. And, you know, maybe he should actually try and just finish the fight this time instead of just walking off every 2 seconds. You know, I thought it was very, very immature how he played the fight and how he, you know, carried himself.
Yeah, and his immaturity might be his biggest downfall on Saturday. Because if he tries to mess about with this this walk-off KO thing that he tries to do, you know, this guy is coming in. He's never fought in the UFC before. He's going to give it absolutely everything. You can be guaranteed he's going to throw everything into this. Whether he wins or loses, he'll put it all in. So if Sean O'Malley just decides he's going to take the mick for 15 minutes, he might end up finding himself in a bit of trouble at some point. So yeah, it would be implorable to say to Sean O'Malley, let's just get the job done. Because if you actually were just to get out there and get it done, you might get it done inside the first round. So let's just crack on.
Yeah, because I just want to have a look at the betting odds here, and as you can imagine, for Sean O'Malley to win the fight, right, just based on a £1 bet, you get a return of £1.12p, which is a 1 to 8. Basically, which is terrible. I'm not sure what it is in American terms. For Chris Martino to win, a £1 bet gets you £6.50 in return. So you can imagine if you were to put a small fortune on this gentleman to catch the W here, you could win a very, very substantial amount of money. And I'm not telling anyone to put any amount of money on either of these fighters, right? Because we hold no responsibility for anyone's losses during any of this.
Gamble,
right? But
you gamble responsibly, people.
Yeah, gamble responsibly. When the fun stops, stop. Right, but just to come in and be such a massive, massive underdog, both financially, you know, with regards to the betting slips, and just as fans, you know, we know nothing about him. We know nothing about this gentleman coming in. But if he comes in and puts on a world-class performance, you know, it's going to absolutely change his life.
Just quickly,
everybody got on the hype train.
Just before Pref jumps in, Connor, you're going to have a quid on Matinho, aren't you?
100%.
You might even put a tenner in just to get 60 quid back of that.
Yeah, no, I only £1 bets, man. £1 bets. That's all I do. Yeah. That's all I do. Prath, what do you think happens here?
You should see how angry he gets when he doesn't get his £1 bet through. Serious business out here, I tell you. What do I say? I mean, like, again, I got to agree with George. I think it seems like it's a layup fight for Sean. No one knows much about Chris. Obviously, CFFC commentators, CM Punk and John Morgan were talking about how good Chris Montano is. But obviously, at the same time, none of us will really know that much until he shows up and starts fighting. So I think the biggest time, the only time where you could really, you know, give an opinion about this guy is on the weigh-in face-off. That's really where you're going to see what his character kind of tells about him. And I think from there onwards, we can kind of then you can kind of have a little bit more of an idea of where it's going to go. But obviously, without knowing too much about him and knowing as much as we do about Sean, I mean, as much as I want to hate him, his last performance was fantastic. You know, outside of the fact that he wasn't really going for the finish until the end. He was trying to get the one punch knockout and leave it there. But his, you know, the kicks, the striking in general was just so elite for me that I think he's gonna give a lot of these guys a bantamweight problem. But I do kind of low-key want to just see him get knocked out because I think that would also be very, very satisfying.
Yeah, and I don't
and like out cold, like don't TKO him and come in and hit him with some out cold. I want to see him and hit with something dirty like a flying knee or a spinning kick or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think
entertain me, guys.
I don't think Multino is going to be the guy to do it. You know, just looking at his record here, out of his last 5, he's got 3 wins and 2 losses, 1 decision, 1 KO from punches, and 1 submission. So, you know, from his last 5, he's probably quite a well-rounded fighter. But looking at his overall wins, 3 TKOs, 1 sub, and 5 decisions. And then looking at his losses, 2 TKOs and 2 submission losses. If he loses, he doesn't go to decision. If he wins, he probably does. So it's a strange one.
The other thing as well about this whole thing, imagine when he got the phone call, right? Oh, so do you want to fight Sean O'Malley out on the opener of the main card on a Conor McGregor fight card? Like,
yeah,
he must have thought it was a joke.
He was like, didn't Ricky Simone? Wasn't he supposed to fight him?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll take that paycheck.
He couldn't say yes quick enough, basically, this guy.
Yeah, literally.
I bet he's going to get paid. I bet he's getting paid absolute peanuts to fight this guy as well.
Oh, yes. He's
Sean O'Malley's going to make triple his paycheck.
20 and 20, maybe. Maximum 20 and 20.
Maximum.
Even the guy.
Maximum.
I wonder how it works with the paychecks, because if you're on the early prelims, you're obviously not a big name, but you're not in a prime spot. Are you getting 12 and 12? But Amari Akhmedov versus Brad Tavares, they're probably stacking a few pennies down there.
Yeah. I'm sure Jessica Eye is probably earning quite a bit. You know, she's a veteran. She's been there for years and years and years. I'm sure she's earning a pretty decent paycheck at this point. And same with Brad Tavares and probably Omari Akhmedov as well. I'm sure he's not on 20. You know, I'm sure he's not on like $500,000. I'm sure he's on like, you know, like 75K. But that's better than 20K. It's better than 10K than most of these guys are getting.
Yeah, for sure. Now we've got Irene Aldana versus Yana Kunitskaya. Okay, so it's nice that we've got some women. Thank you very much. Thank you. My pronunciation.
Just loving the pronunciations.
George, how do you think this plays out? Because naturally, whenever these women fight, we always just put it up to the champions of what would happen if they come up against the champ, and subsequently they would lose. So where do you think these 2 women go after this? And obviously being on such a big card as well, this is great publicity for these 2 ladies as well.
Yeah, it's a huge card. It's a huge opportunity for both of them. And actually, they're both in interesting positions because, obviously, Aldana fought Holly Holm back on Fight Island last year. That was a big chance for her. You know, obviously that didn't work out because Holly Holm was amazing that night. Mm-hmm. And obviously, Kunitskaya is kind of rising up the kind of rankings quietly. You know, no one's really paying much attention to it. So it feels like if Kunitskaya can beat Aldana, she's very close to that kind of title eliminated title kind of fight potentially. And Aldana kind of needs to get back on the kind of train to get herself back to that title shot. So it feels like a big fight for both ladies. I really like Aldana though. I think her boxing style is really quite good. And you know, those Mexicans, man, they seem to be coming along, pretty damn good at the moment. You know, Aldana and Alexa Grasso, they both train at the same gym, don't they? And they are 2 top class boxers. You know, and obviously got a Mexican champion now. So who knows? We may see another Mexican champion soon, but it certainly won't be from the women's divisions because, as you said, all the champions currently all stay as champions.
Yeah, and I think it's strange that these 2 women, obviously ranked 5 and 4, and the ranked number 6 is going to be fighting the champion and my personal greatest of all time, Amanda Nunes. So I think it's very, very strange that these 2 women are even in contention here.
I will say, Mrs. Tiago Santos, as I like to call her, her last win is over Caitlin Vieira, who is one of the better bantamweight fighters out there as well. So I think that's why she got kind of elevated in the rankings there quite highly. But Aldana's a firework, man, and she has got some incredible boxing. Head movement is fantastic. Her overall movement is fantastic as well. I think she kind of mops the floor with Kunitskaya here a little bit because while Kunitskaya is good at kind of grinding out those decisions, she just doesn't have the stand-up skills to deal with someone like Aldana, who's just going to overwhelm her with strikes, movement, head movement, and just kind of make her look a little bit like an amateur boxer.
especially with
It
6
looked like-
knockout wins.
Yep. So
Go
well
ahead,
done, man.
George, sorry.
I just said that I think she'll make it look like a bit like a punch bag.
Yeah.
The movement for her is not so great. I think she just lands heavily, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think Aldana wins this pretty comfortably.
We'll have to wait and see. Fingers crossed it's a banger anyway. And, sometimes, as we all know, as the European fans, we see these women on the mid card of the main, on the mid of a main card, and we think, right, there's 15 minutes to sleep there. It will be 4:45 in the morning, and we'll be having a little nap during this fight. But I think this will be a banger between these two women. And I think Aldana's going to catch the W here, and I think she's going to get a second round TKO. You heard it here first. So a pound on that, double up, right, on Chris Mutino to win, and Irene Aldana to catch the W.
Get the knockout.
That's it.
Get the knockout.
Get the knockout. That's it. Round and method, right? Round and method. That'll double your money. But what we have next is a fight that obviously last week's show I spoke to Brian Mad Dog MMA about, and he was massively disappointed to see Greg Hardy being on any sort of card because he hates his guts. And we've got Tai Tuivasa, the shoey man himself, facing Greg Hardy. Now, I think this is a very, very strange position for this fight to be anyway, being the co-main. I'd rather watch any other fight than this. Being in this slot, personally, I don't think this is going to be a massively entertaining fight. I feel like it's going to be one person gassing and one person trying to throw everything and then expecting to do a beer out of a shoe at the end, which is naturally a bit gimmicky anyway. I don't see either of these heavyweights ever really making it anywhere near the title. Personally, I don't see them making any noise in the heavyweight division. Tai Tuivasa has been cut previously. If he gets a couple of losses, is he going to be cut again? Probably. But Prath, I don't want to play it down too much because this might be an absolute banger of a fight, but I'm not really overly excited as a MMA fan and as a lover of good fights. I'm not really looking at this thinking, wow, this is going to be a fantastic chess match by these two world-class athletes.
Yeah, it's gonna look a little bit more like a fight in a parking lot than a professional mixed martial arts fight. Both guys are just not the most amazing of technique. Tai, the shoey Tuivasa, I appreciate the gimmick. I appreciate the laughs. He kind of reminds me of John Vellante. Do you know John Vellante, Chris Weidman's buddy? He's not great, but he's a laugh, and he gets in there and he has a bit of a he's a laugh, but is he championship material? Is he striving to be the best potential fighter in the world with technique and mindset and things like that? I don't think so. I think he wants to come in and do a bunch of shoeies and gets the hell out of there. So with that in mind, he's fighting someone that is at least willing to kind of move forward and strike with him. I do hate Greg Hardy, and I can understand why Mad Dog hates Greg Hardy as well. Greg Hardy's got a very storied history with violence, domestic violence, and things of that nature. So I don't blame Mad Dog for feeling the way that he does. I think a lot of the world feels the same way about Greg Hardy, and ultimately that's why he's put so far up in the card, is because people want to see this guy get knocked the F out. And whichever way that happens, whether that's Tai, whether that's Francis, or whether that's someone else that gets their hands on this guy, I think it's one of those ones where no matter where Greg, no matter, when it is a Greg Hardy fight, he's going to get put quite high up on the card. I think he's headlined before. I think he's co-main evented. He's headlined the prelims. He's been all over those kind of different spots there. And it's because of his history, which is sad to say that they're kind of taking advantage of someone's, history within something as bad as domestic violence, and they're pushing that name out there. Guilty, not guilty, you're still associated with it. And I think to put someone in that position is inherently wrong. But he's able to get through these fights. He's got a couple of wins at this point as well, and I think that's kind of the smoke screen that the UFC will put in front of you to give you the reason why they put someone like this in that position, more so than his criminal history and things of that nature. So I don't think anyone cares about this fight. I don't think anyone is expecting this fight to be a barn burner or anything like that. I think Ty has got a little bit more technical skills than Greg Hardy. So if anyone's getting knocked out, I think Greg Hardy is the one that's going to get knocked out. But I agree with you guys, and I think it's going to be like a really slow, boring decision. Everybody get your 15 minutes of sleep. Make sure you stay up and watch the Irene Aldana fight, and then fall asleep for this one because this is going to be boring.
Yeah, and just looking at Greg, the Prince of War. I mean, as far as nicknames go, and using an inhaler. He used an inhaler between rounds. If your name is Prince of War, I do not expect you to have asthma and to need an inhaler between rounds. And he must have known that that's massively illegal. As you know, I do like marathons and triathlons and stuff like that. I know full well that if you use an inhaler, it opens your airways, giving you a physical advantage as to what you're doing. Like, how can you be so stupid and so ignorant to not know, coming from a background of professional sports himself anyway, at a very top level? Like, how can you not know that that's illegal? Like, I literally don't understand how someone could do something so silly and so naive to do that. But his previous wins are terrible. He got knocked out by Volkov. He's been knocked out by various other people. Tuivasa knocked out Struve and Harry Hunsucker, who is his last win. Like, why are you fighting so high up on a Conor McGregor card when your last win was to a guy that stepped in on 3 days' notice? Like, how has that propelled you this far in life? I don't understand. George, do you have anything to say on this? If not, we'll move swiftly on to the co-main.
No, I just want to say that I actually think this is actually embarrassing from the UFC. It's actually embarrassing.
That's
it. It actually is.
George has spoken.
So embarrassing. Yeah, like, I don't get it. You got a guy who decides he wants to beat up women for a living, not for a living, but on the side. That's embarrassing. And that's actually makes you a massive. I can't swear because it's for the radio, but yeah, you know what I'm going to say. And I don't get the tie to that thing. No, overrated. There you go. Overrated and an absolute bell ND.
When he came in, he had such hype to him, and I think he won those first couple of fights, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, this guy's going to be great." I think he's Mark Hunt 2.0, and then he just fell off so hard, and he's just not been able to regain that steam, and he just looks worse and worse every time. When you're watching these fighters, for the most part, they seem to get better and better with each fight. Tai Tuivasa gets worse and worse with each fight. It's weird.
I would just say as well, I know, like instead of hating like fighters, like, I just think that someone's got to say to Dana, Sean, Hunter, like, why is this co-main? Like, what in the hell? Like Ryan Hall, Ilya Taporia, Nico Price, Michelle Pereira, there's a lot more fights that would have been way better sat in there than this one. I just don't. I don't get it. I actually don't care, to be honest. Let's just move on. Yeah. Gilbert Burns, Steve Wonderboy Thompson. Yeah, let's do it. Come on, co-main.
But on that, just to say the Irene Aldana fight has some significance within their ranking system as well. You've got 4 versus 5, whereas Tuivasa and Greg Hardy, why are they so far? They're not even ranked.
Yeah, someone has to answer. Like, why? I don't get it. Like, out of all the cards I've ever seen, there's been some weird placing of fights, but this is one of the weirdest I've known for a while. It's bizarre. I literally couldn't care less about it.
I could actually see Dana being like, oh, it's because Tai Tuivasa is a really popular fighter that I think people really love. Not skipping past the fact that you're taking advantage of the fact that Greg Hardy has a domestic history of domestic violence.
Very strange.
We'll skip past that, but everyone loves a shoey.
Everyone loves a shoey, and obviously he couldn't do it when he had his last fight because it was on Fight Island, I believe. No alcohol, etc. He had a shoe, but nothing to put in it. Very unfortunate. Obviously, with this one having a live audience, he'll probably have multiple beers being thrown at him if he does catch the W here. But the co-main is way, way more exciting. So after your 15 minutes of sleep, I believe we should all wake up and watch this absolute banger of a fight. We have Stephen Wonderboy Thompson coming in and facing Gilbert, the widest neck in the world, Burns. Now, Stephen Thompson should.
That's what Dorino means.
Yeah, it is literally. That's what it means. I've Google translated it, and that's what it came up with.
Oh, brilliant.
But Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is. I feel like he's been in the UFC since the dawn of time, and he's had a fantastic, fantastic career. He's obviously made his way up to title contention before, fell slightly short, and now he's making his way back. And he's had some fantastic wins over the years as well, because when he beat Vicente Luque, it was unbelievable. He had such a phenomenal performance. And then everyone thinks about the time that he got knocked out by Anthony Pettis when he jumped off the back of the cage and obviously caught him with a right hook. But even the best fighter in the world has got a couple of losses in the record, apart from Khabib, naturally, because he didn't take any losses. But I think this is going to be an absolutely fantastic fight, where we will see Gilbert Burns mentally. I do not know after the loss against Kamaru Usman, because he looked very, very hittable. And if you look very, very hittable, I feel like Stephen, the Wonder Boy Thompson, with his karate style, will make sure he comes in, catches you with a little jab, and then he'll be out. He'll be running around the octagon. Fantastic gas tank. I don't know why this isn't 5 rounds. I think this would be a fantastic fight to be 5 rounds, right?
Yeah, actually, it would be. Yeah.
George, tell me, does Wonder Boy catch the W here and then make his way back to the title contention, or do you think Gilbert, the widest neck in the world, Burns, is going to catch a dub here and make his way back to the title?
Right, before Gilbert Burns fought Kamaru Usman, I would have said that Gilbert Burns would win this. But now I've seen Gilbert Burns have his face jabbed off by Kamaru Usman, I'm pretty certain that Wonder Boy is going to win this one, because the striking is so elite. Every single person that ever fights Wonder Boy tells you straight after the fight that they've never seen anything like it. His striking is so hard to get used to. And I think that because of that, Wonder Boy is going to be able to navigate his way around Dorino's takedown attempts, and he's going to win this by decision. I think it's a really interesting fight, because Gilbert, if he wins this, he gets himself right back in title contention. I actually think if Wonder Boy wins this, I actually think they might even, after Colby, give him the title shot after Colby Covington, and that means Leon Edwards he's halfway to Bellator at that point. So like, I just,
I agree.
yeah, I think it's true though, isn't it? Let's be honest. Like,
I
oh
agree.
man, like that 60 seconds, man, that is the killer career blow, man. Anyway, move on from that for the minute. But yeah, I think it's that kind of like classic kind of thing where I think Gilbert Burns, when he knocked out Damian Maia, I think he then had an overinflated opinion of his hands. And I think he fought, and then he caught Kamaru Usman early in that fight. And I think he thinks that maybe his best weapon is his hands, and actually it's clearly on the ground. And maybe go back to that on Saturday against Wonder Boy, not try and stand there. Because I think if he's going to try and like do a bit more stand up, I think he'll find himself in big trouble with Wonder Boy, massive trouble. I think he needs to try and get Wonder Boy down, work at him on the ground, and we'll go from there. That's his way to victory. Wonder Boy's victory, we all know. I just think Wonder Boy outstrikes him. I just think that's the case. I think he outstrikes him across the 3 rounds. I think it could be close. But I do think Wonder Boy gets it done. And I think there's a real narrative at that point for Wonder Boy to fight Kamaru Usman. He's never fought him. It's a really interesting matchup stylistically for Kamaru Usman. And no one would complain. If they booked it, Usman, Wonder Boy, no one would complain about it. But it's a really, really interesting fight on Saturday. There's clear ways for each guy to win. I just think Wonder Boy outstrikes him. I think he gets the win by decision.
I think Wonder Boy's got fantastic takedown defense as well. Fantastic takedown defense.
You know what? I was thinking that. I don't want to say that because I can't quite remember. I was looking the other day about what his takedown defense percentage was. It's very high. Really, really high. Yeah. And he's been making it for the last couple of weeks. People have been saying, what about the takedown? It's like, yeah, have you seen my takedown defense? It's really quite good. Like, I think I've got all the tools to stop I've got a fat neck Burns.
Or Dorino.
Or Dorino.
Or Dorito. Sorry, I'll shorten it to Dorino.
Yeah. or Dorito. So, Prath, what do you think happens this Saturday? Because Gilbert Dorino Burns is going to want to get it back in the win column here. And he was obviously on a very, very good run. He came up against the champ. He came up short against the champ. But this is undeniably the best we have ever seen Kamaru Usman looking. In his previous 4 or 5 fights, he's been looking absolutely phenomenal. So a loss against prime Kamaru Usman is, you can't compare that.
There's no pun, can it? Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So
George.
I was just going to say, he got destroyed by Kamaru Usman. He got destroyed by Usman.
By prime Usman. By prime
Usman.
Of course. And changed camp Usman,
Yeah. Scariest man on the planet right now.
Is it possible to say, guys, that Kamaru Usman maybe broke Gilbert Burns a little bit mentally as well?
There you go.
At the end of the fight, where he was, on the floor crying, hysterically crying. I think that's one of those experiences that's very hard to come back from, especially taking a knockout loss to like that to someone that you've trained with for many years. Does that hugely affect him in this fight? I don't know if it does, but I do think that he did find himself broken at the end of that fight, and that kind of is something that maybe Stephen Thompson can kind of play into going into this fight and in the fight itself. Because I think when you watch Stephen Thompson against Vicente Luque, that's kind of the way he was able to break him down, right? Just even when he was knocking him down or hitting him with a sidekick to the body and knocking Vicente Luque down, he was getting up and giving him the glove, oh yeah, let's high five. But for me, that's kind of almost like Stephen Thompson's big brothering Vicente Luque. And I think that's kind of that's a possibility, an angle that you might see in this fight here. Just something to consider, that Stephen Thompson's striking is so good, his movement is so good, that he could also find himself breaking Gilbert Burns here a little bit mentally, and Gilbert Burns kind of quitting on himself, not in the sense that he's just going to lie down and let Stephen Thompson win. I think it's still going to be tough for Stephen Thompson to win, but I think just the accuracy, if he's able to hit him with something significant like a spinning kick or something, something just a little bit outside the box as well, I think Gilbert Burns will just panic a lot and just try to wrestle Stephen Thompson to the ground, at which point Stephen Thompson, has a great takedown takedown defense ratio. So that really pays into his advantage there in that sense. And I think at that point as well, Stephen Thompson can just really pick him apart with the kicks to the legs, kicks to the body, kicks to the head. And I just think he's just the master of that as well. Just knowing what the shot selection from Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, second to none. I think he just knows where the guy is, what the distance and the angle is. He's nearly 40 years old, right? So imagine the amount of time of kickboxing, the amount of experience that this guy's had. He's only had very few losses. I actually don't know what his record is. Four losses, right? 16-4, 20 fights in the UFC, and that's you see a lot of guys have those double-digit losses. Carlos Condit, double-digit losses, things like that. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson has been around since before the Reebok. He still had Condom Depot on the back of his trunks, and still picking up wins against most of these guys. That's not something that you can say about a lot of these guys, and he's still considered one of the best welterweights in the planet. So Stephen Thompson said, "F time. I'm here to stay. I'm here to win." I thought after the Tyron Woodley losses, or the Tyron Woodley trilogy in general, that I thought Stephen Thompson would always just kind of fall off after that, and he has proven me wrong every single time. Even against Anthony Pettis, he was winning that fight until Anthony and knocked him out. So it's not that he's...
That's it. The showtime
and just shows you how good Anthony Pettis is in one respect, but also just Stephen Thompson is still at the top of his game, and anyone can get caught by a shot, and that was the first time he's been knocked out in all of those fights. So it tells you a lot about first, how never there was always a saying. I used to play a game when I was younger on PlayStation 1 called Crash Team Racing, and it was one of those things where I would be racing my friend, we'd be against each other, and all of a sudden we'd be I'd be flying past him and I'd be halfway down the track and I'd be like, yeah, I've got this. I got this in the bag. I got this in the bag. And then he would hit me with a weapon that would just take me all the way to the back. And it is a phrase we always used to say, which is never get gassed, because life and reality will just take over. And it's one of those ones where, he was at a position where he got through nearly 20 fights without getting even touched here in most of these fights. It's possible. But at the same time, I think he's got the technical skills to really shut down Gilbert Burns and just really play with him here.
So
that was a really long-winded explanation, but yes,
that's why you're
Stephen
the
Thompson
eloquent
boy for the
analyst,
win.
man. So we're all in agreement that Stephen Thompson is going to catch the W here this weekend.
Yes, sir.
Are we all in agreement though that it's irrelevant because no one's going to beat Kamaru Usman?
And that is just
the same thing with the ladies.
Yeah, exactly. Same with whoever comes up against Amanda Nunes or Shevchenko or Usman or, Israel Adesanya. They're all just at the top of their games. But the longer you stay at the top, as we saw with Anderson Silva, the longer you stay at the top, you will come down at some point. The young buck, the new lion's going to come in. They're going to challenge you. They're going to challenge the old dog, and they're going to take over the crown. It's just how it works.
I think he gives Kamaru his toughest fight, though. I will say that, because I think Kamaru will try and stand with him. He won't take him down. He won't try and take him down just to, prove a point and, try and be that guy, if you will. I think they have a classic fight. I honestly think their first fight will be amazing, and the second one after that will be great as well.
I was going to sing the Circle of Life then. Sorry. I was going to sing the Circle of Life. I was going to break into song. The Circle of Life was coming.
I was going to say, well, because Kamaru Usman at the moment is falling in love with his hands.
Yeah,
that's not what got him there.
But they're good.
They are good, and it's scary as hell that they are that good, because Trevor Whitman, he's really developed them. But it's like if you do fight Wonderboy at some point, don't forget that the reason why you got to where you were was because of your wrestling. It'll be huge in that fight if they were to fight each other. But I think Usman will walk away at the top of his game. I think he'll do a Habib. I think he'll walk away and he won't allow himself to become this guy who gets beaten time after time after time.
No, I'm with you. So this takes us up to the main event of the evening. And Conor McGregor actually gave us a little shout out, which I'm just going to play. Wait, that's fight and talk. That's exactly what he said on the press conference last time he was out. That's fight and talk. When we all saw bald Conor McGregor, who was apparently going to get the best win of his career, get knocked out in a brutal, brutal fashion. Now, wow. I'm very, very excited about this. There's not many fights that I get genuinely excited about. And this is one of the very, very rare occasions where I will probably pay to watch this as well, because I really want to watch this whole card. And unfortunately, when Conor McGregor is heading a card, we do have to pay for it over in the UK, although we do get all of the other ones for the entire year with our BT Sports subscription. So it's one of them things. It's going to be £20 instead of like $90 that the poor Americans are going to have to pay, which is very, very unfortunate. But nevertheless, we will pay it and we will watch Conor McGregor fighting Dustin Poirier for the third time. Now, I'm going to throw my 2 cents on this straight away, because me and Prath were talking earlier and we've both watched this multiple times. We need to see some massive, massive improvements from Conor McGregor to catch the win here. I really, really feel like we need to see a completely different person. Now, are we going to see that completely different person? I don't know. After the previous loss, it was like, right, I need to get back on my yacht now and I need to sail off into the Bahamas and stuff like that. And we saw him fishing and there was lots of memes and stuff that came up after. Does he need this fight for his legacy? Yes. Does he need this fight for money? Clearly not. I believe he's in the process, or he has sold his Proper 12 whiskey portion of his business for a very, very substantial amount of money. Does he have a yacht? Yes. I'd assume that if you have a yacht, you probably don't need to fight Dustin Poirier for some spare change. But he's going to have to fight to win the fans back. There are so many Conor McGregor fans out there, because that point in mixed martial arts, what was it, like 7 years ago, 6-7 years ago, when Conor McGregor was really, really taking off, the world seemed to jump on the mixed martial arts train. And there are a lot of, you know, as they're known in the industry, Conor McGregor stands. And does he lose stock after this fight? If he loses, I don't know, because he's got some absolute diehard fans out there. But if he catches the win, he's going to be straight into a title match here. Straight into a title match. There's no doubt about it, because Conor McGregor, having the draw power that he does, he's only ever one fight away from getting a win, from getting the belt. Sorry. But does he do it? Prath, tell me, what's your 2 cents on this, my friend?
I hate to go against the grain. I hate to go against the people, the majority. For some crazy ass reason, people are disregarding the fact that, like, not even 5 months ago, Dustin Poirier knocked this dude out cold. And for some reason, everyone's picking Conor to win, which I just do not understand, because I think in the amount of time that the fight has passed, like, there's not enough time for him to make a substantial skill level increase, or even, you know, tactically. Like, I think he's not going to be able to really implement his plan the way that I think everyone else is kind of expecting him to. You know, not saying that Conor is not a finisher, as our great friend would once say. I think Dustin Poirier is just, skill level wise, I just think he's so good. I think his boxing is so good, his kickboxing is so good, his wrestling is so good, his jiu-jitsu is so good. He's just for me, outside of Khabib, is just the most well-rounded fighter in the UFC, period. Like, outside of someone maybe like an Israel Adesanya, who's just, you know, his striking level is such a high level. I think Dustin Poirier is one of the best fighters in the world, legitimately. And for me, I think while Conor is good as well, I think Dustin is just, I think he's able to adjust. I think, you know, I was watching the interview with Brett Okamoto, and he was talking about how he expects Conor to throw leg kicks more so than Dustin to throw leg kicks, and for Conor to check them. And I think that's absolutely right. I think Conor is now going to come out and think of a way of really offsetting Dustin Poirier's game plan by coming in a completely different version. We're not going to see Conor of 2015 throwing outside crescent moon kicks and things of that nature. But what we will see is a slightly more refined version. I think one that would throw a little bit more leg kicks than he did in the second exchange. But ultimately, I think Dustin, for me, has the will and the determination to win those later rounds, even if it's one of those ones that goes to those later rounds, the third, fourth, and fifth round. I think that's really where you see Dustin Poirier thrive. When you watch the fight against Dan Hooker, the first couple of rounds were the ones that he really struggled with, and then later on he was able to turn it on. So for him to knock out Conor within the first 2 rounds, I think there's only more ways for Dustin to win as the fight kind of progresses. If Conor's going to win, he's going to win in the first couple of rounds. He's going to win by knockout. He's going to catch him with the left hand, the famous left hand, and potentially put him down. But I think anything past that first round, Dustin Poirier, is the odds-on favorite to really take it, even if it goes to decision, a submission, a knockout within the outside of the first round. I think everyone's really going to put their money there that way. So it's going to be a fun fight, man. I think anytime Conor gets into the ring, it's an exciting one. It's so fun. He brings such a good energy to the game that I think people just really buy into that. The hype, the talk, the almost the spectacle of a Conor McGregor fight. I think that's what people are going to be drawn into here more so than anything. So I think it's going to be great like that. But I do think Dustin Poirier smokes this Brer again. I love this phrase that you've hit. I put you on airplane mode. Like, I love that phrase, and I see Dustin doing the same thing. Second round, third round, potentially. Or I think it's going to be one of those ones where he kind of drags him, because I feel like Dustin as well, like after watching that interview, I think Dustin really wants to like prove how better he is than Conor. So I wouldn't be surprised if he draws Conor into those later rounds, maybe lays off of him in the first couple of rounds, takes him to those later rounds, and then really scores him from there. So yeah, that's kind of where I see it going. Dustin all day, man. Dustin Poirier is one of my favorite fighters in the UFC, if you couldn't tell already. But yeah, that's where I see it going.
I think after when Conor McGregor lost to Nate Diaz, the first time, the first one, obviously he lost, and then he came back and he won the second, and it went to a decision, obviously, and he won the decision. He was fighting like he knew he had to win, however which way he could, you know. And he went in, he got a lot of leg kicks. He was very much point kickboxing. He didn't throw caution to the wind and kind of go and do some crazy spinning stuff. He knew he had to catch the W any way possible. And Nate Diaz kind of sat back and almost let him do that a little bit. Both guys were, you know, covered in blood by the end of it. And it was a very, very good fight. But, you know, I don't think Dustin Poirier is going to sit back. You know, he's got fantastic finishing instincts. Not to say that Conor McGregor is not a finisher, but I think Dustin Poirier is going to be hot on this, and Conor's going to want to come out and cruise for the first 2.5 rounds, knowing that he needs to get past that, because that was when he lost in their second fight. He knew he got stopped in the second, so he's going to want to get past that from a mental perspective anyway. So I'm with you, man. I you know what? It's going to be a 2-1 tonight, unfortunately, because George, as we know, and we're going to preempt that you are going with a Conor win, but you know, I'm just gonna say, me and Prath, we're going for Dustin the Diamond Poirier. And, you know, if you're going to put some money on it, Montino, Aldana, and Dustin Poirier for the W's.
Ample responsibility, people.
Cash in. Put £1 bets, £1 bets. But, George, tell us, Conor McGregor obviously has to get the win here, as we've been saying.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
yes.
Where does he go? You know, are we going to see him fighting Dan Hooker? Are we going to, you know, who are we going to see him fighting after this? Because
I would love to see
it has to be someone that gets the draw. You know, he's not going to be fighting. Who's the Tesla guy? The guy that wanted his Tesla. His name's just completely gone out of my head. Dariush. He's not. You know, we're not going to see Conor McGregor versus Dariush, because that's not a big enough draw. You know, and then anyone outside the kind of top 7. I don't see Conor McGregor really getting in the octagon with them, unless it's going to be Charles Oliveira. I mean, even if he catches the loss here at the weekend, I could definitely see him going for a title. You know, I can see him going, well, you know, if he loses by decision, I can see him getting a title shot anyway. But George, tell me, where do you see this going? And you obviously think that I'm going to assume that Conor's going to be in Crush Corner this week, right?
No, actually, in Crush Corner this week was Ilia Topuria, the Georgian fighter. Yeah. You know, I like my Georgian fighter.
We spoke about him well for you. Don't worry.
Yeah. I think he's top draw. But yeah, no, look, I actually think this is the biggest fight of both guys' careers. I think this is and that's saying something for Conor. I think this is. If Conor wins on Saturday, I think he hits the stratosphere more than he ever has done before, because it's the ultimate, like. This feels like the ultimate test. Like you just felt it was inevitable against like people like Eddie Alvarez that he was going to win. You know, come to and all this kind of stuff. This one feels like a true test. And it feels like if Conor was to come through this, like it almost reaffirms him in a certain way to people, like that he is what he tells you he is. Now, when I think back to Fight Island, obviously him getting knocked out, very bad night at the office, clearly and obviously. But there were certain things that I didn't like about that whole week. And I said it at the time when we started doing the podcast. You know, he turned up, I think, thinking it was going to be an easy night's work. And he got a massive shock. He had the whole yacht thing, the whole family thing. Everything. It was a completely different Conor McGregor. And I said at the time, it made no sense. It was not, for me, what I perceived McGregor to be like. You've seen now, the family have gone, the yacht's gone, he's in the gym. And yeah, look, Conor answers only to Conor himself. I get that. But there is a different mentality, clearly, in this fight. And you can have all the money in the world, but this is as they both said, this is for all the marbles. This is for the trilogy. This is for it to be forevermore. You had the trilogy, and this is a chance to fight for a title. You'll fight Charles Oliveira before the end of the year if you win this on Saturday. And how much? And I suppose the question simply is: we know that Dustin wants it, we know it, but how much does Conor want it? Like that's the simple question. I feel like you find out quite quickly of Conor McGregor. Like you found out quite. It feels like you kind of know almost before he's going to step in there, kind of how it is. And I could have, when I look back on it now, it's January, I should have really said at the time that Dustin was going to win because it just didn't feel like Conor McGregor was kind of in the right kind of mindset. I actually thought in that first round.
You both bet against him. Thank you.
It's true, we did, to be fair. But do you know what, though? In that first round, he was landing on Dustin. I don't care what anybody says. He was landing shots on Dustin. And there is still that thing where at times Dustin was a bit like he was rock. It was not rock. That's not the right word, but he was kind of like, oh, I know Conor's there, kind of. So there is that to it as well. But look, I think the other one as well is that Fight Island for Dustin personally would have been easier to deal with Conor McGregor away from the octagon because there was no crowd, there was no fans. Conor McGregor was being quite nice. All this kind of stuff. This week, we've already seen it happening. Las Vegas has become Ireland. It's become Dublin already. And how does Dustin, I know he says that he's moved on from that, but it's interesting to see how Dustin deals with this week. He might be the only American fighter that I could think of that might walk out on Saturday and actually be booed while Conor gets cheered. Like, that's going to be quite a weird thing for Dustin, no matter what he says and all the experience that he now has. I think part of the battle this week is outside of the octagon. There is a mental battle to it. Conor McGregor has shown over the years to be a genius at the mental battle. Dustin has got way better at the mental battle. And I think that plays a huge part this week. I'm fascinated by the press conference, what Conor brings to that. Does he go old school or does he kind of keep it the same? I think it's really intriguing. I can't deny that a part of me just wants to see Conor McGregor get his hand raised. There's always that part of you, like that small part. And the thought of him knocking Dustin Poirier out in the first 10 minutes, walking around, doing the Billy strut, giving it the big massive, kind of brings a massive smile to my face. But I think Dustin enters as the favourite, but I think Conor gets it done. He makes adjustments. He has shown that in the past. I fancy him to knock Dustin Poirier out. I can't deny it, and I think he might just do it on Saturday night.
And like you say, in the previous press conference, there was a lot of Conor McGregor was being overly nice. He was being too nice to the point where, if my memory serves me right, even Poirier kind of said, "All right, cool." He kind of was like, "Yeah, we're not here to hold each other's hands." And then they had a little bit of an altercation on social media when Conor McGregor obviously said that he was going to give a substantial amount of money to the Good Fight Foundation, which I believe got cleared up quite quickly as well. But I'm very, very excited not only to see the fight and to how they go in and respect each other, but I think it will be strange. I think it will be a strange kind of aura around the two of them as to how they're going to act going into this.
I think this is going to be a bit of chaos, man. I think Conor is coming in to really prove a point.
I think a part of Conor feels like people are doubting him a little bit. They're kind of then I think that of course, and I think that really pees him off. Like when I look back on that second one, I think there was a sense of not being that bothered or thinking it was easy work. I think he now understands that Dustin's not easy work. And you've got to go back to the lab essentially, and you've got to find a way. This is huge. This is like Conor's always been about like maximizing himself. If you lose on Saturday, you lose so much. You lose way more than Dustin does, I think. So it's a huge night for Conor McGregor. I think it's his biggest ever night in mixed martial arts. I really do.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. I think this will be the biggest fight draw of the year and probably of the last quite a few years, because you're going to have the Dustin Poirier kind of super fan club are going to be watching this going, right, Conor's going to get knocked out. And then you've got the entire world, and apparently everyone is some of part Irish anyway, that's going to be supporting Conor McGregor, wanting him to win. And then it's just going to be, I think this is going to get the biggest draw in pay-per-view history just to watch the main event.
I'm so excited to see Conor's back up against the wall, because that's what Conor is at the moment. His back's up against the wall. He's the one under the most under pressure. He lost the last fight. Like Prav said, he got knocked out. He'd never been knocked out. This is Conor backed into a corner. How does Conor react? Does he shrivel up and does he just whimper away into the distance, or does he actually come out and does what he claims to be? Put on a bit of a magic show and put on a bit of a spectacle.
Yeah. So we're going to go with some results now. We're going to go with method of victory, and we're going to go with the fighter that you think is going to win. So Prath, tell me.
That's the main event, Dustin Poirier.
Yep.
I'm going to go unconventional. I'm going to say he's going to get a submission, and I'm going to say it's going to be in like the 4th or 5th round.
Okay. For Dustin Poirier, submission late in the game. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a closer fight, and I think obviously Conor will have made some adjustments. I think Dustin will want to draw him into those later rounds just to kind of prove a point that he, the second fight wasn't just him landing a big shot and putting him away. I think he's going to want to draw him out later. And, you saw the comments about both of them going back and forth about, who takes down who. You took me down first, or you do this, you're a B word because you took him down. And it's like, oh my God, like you got to use the full range of mixed martial arts. And that's one thing I've always, dude, if that's the way that you think, then go do kickboxing. What are you doing in MMA if you don't want people to take you down? Or at least you don't want to work on your takedown defense or offensive takedowns. I've never seen Conor do an offensive takedown apart from the Max Holloway fight, 8 years ago.
Against Nate Diaz, when he got completely rocked and Conor McGregor tried to take down.
But then he got reversed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but then he got reversed.
He was completely knocked out, and he was like, right, I'm going to shoot. And even Joe Rogan was like, did Conor just shoot?
Oh my God! Have you seen the what is it? How they? I love how they have the cam on the commentators when Nate Diaz is about to lock in that submission. You can see that Joe Rogan's like sitting there like, oh my God, I can't believe it. He's just the craziness in his eyes is incredible to watch. But yeah, so I think he draws him into later round submission. Dustin Poirier.
Cool. George, Conor McGregor, how and when?
Yeah, if Dustin survives 15 minutes, Conor's bang in trouble. But I'm gonna say that Conor gets it done late second round with classic left hand.
Okay.
And if he then wins, he then loses to Charlie Olives at Christmas.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
I'm with you.
Conor McGregor against Charlie Olives. Charlie Olives takes out all day.
And now that's something that I would very, very much like to break down later on in the year with you lovely gentlemen. I am going to go with Dustin Poirier, but I'm going to go with a decision, but I think it's going to be like a 48-47 kind of vibe.
Okay.
Oh, just quickly, right? You just mentioned that, right? If it goes decision and the fight's close, do you reckon Conor wins it, doesn't he? Conor, they'll give it to Conor, won't they?
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing.
Vegas, man. Vegas, baby.
And that's the thing. But
Chris Lee, where you at?
Yeah, and out of all of these fights, for something crazy to happen in, like an eye poke or a grounded knee or, I don't know, a fish hook or a groin strike or something. If something's going to happen, this is going to be the fight that it's going to be in, because we've seen week after week after week that there's just been mad stuff happening. Aljo getting the belt because of the grounded knee. We've seen Eric Anders do it to Darren Stewart. We've seen just mad stuff week after week. So to see this going into some sort of madness, eye poke or gouge or something, or
we need Mark. We need Mark. What's his name? Mark on the referee. Mark Smith, the referee. Chris Lee, Saudi Amato on judging.
Yeah.
Along with what's her name?
Adelaide Bird.
So who's the referee? What's the referee called that Dana said he's never going to ref again?
Al Guinea.
No.
Al Guinea. Oh, yeah.
Mario Yamasaki. You got so many.
We're going to get Yamasaki out of retirement to ref this main event, yeah? And then we'll see what happens.
Hell yeah.
Oh, that would be absolute chaos. But I'm super excited for this fight weekend coming up. And
can we just before we finish here, boys, can we just talk about the most important bet that we're going to be putting on right now, which is who's actually going to stay up and watch this fight? Because we're all sitting here right now yawning out of our faces at 1 a.m. and we've got to stay up till 5 a.m. on a Saturday and watch this fight.
6.
I think that's going to be the most important. 6 a.m. Yeah,
At least.
that's going to be the more important bet.
The excitement, man, of this card, that'll get me through the whole night.
I'm hoping so.
I think I start work at like 8, so I probably won't stay up for this one, but I might do. I haven't decided yet. I you know what, the hardcore fan in me is probably like, you know what, just do it, just rough it straight through, have like double espressos at like 3 a.m. and just do it.
Yeah.
But the mature man that has quite a lot to do that weekend, opening a restaurant is like, you know what, just catch a bit of sleep here, bud. You know.
Yeah. George, you better go make some room on Casual Corner for him.
Hey, we're swapping.
Corner. Don't worry, man.
Yeah, we're swapping places.
That's it. We're all swapping places. But until next week, we will obviously do a breakdown of this show to see if we get any of these things right. You know, we are not professional analysts. We are merely mixed martial arts fans that love talking about it and recording it for people that want to listen. So thank you very much, the eloquent analyst. It was lovely to have you back on the show. And now that things are looking a bit more straight and narrow, fingers crossed, everything will be as such and you'll be back day in, day out now.
Hopefully, man.
Fingers crossed. George, as always in Casual Crush Corner, thank you very much for jumping into the show after a 5-hour journey from the city centre down to the countryside. It was greatly appreciated.
You're welcome.
And if you want to listen to us, we are on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube. We've got a little bit of merch as well. We've obviously got some beanie hats, and naturally it's like 28 degrees even when it's raining here in London, but we ship them around the world. So whatever country you're in, you can wear a beanie hat that says Fight and Talk 2 and support the channel. We also do some t-shirts, which are great for any weather. So yeah, we're covering all bases here. If you're listening to us on the Sportinarium Radio, thank you very much for listening as always, and we will catch you next time.